If you're over 65 and still driving the same way you've been driving for decades, I need you to stop right now and listen to what I'm about to tell you. Because 2026 could be the year you get fined, flagged, or even lose your license without ever knowing you broke a new rule. And here's what makes this truly dangerous. Many of these new driving rules don't feel new at all. Same roads, same signs, same habits you've trusted for years. But underneath, everything has changed. Quietly, automatically, and in some cases, permanently. I'm John from Dream Visa Updates, and what I'm about to share with you isn't speculation. These are enforcement policies already approved, funded, and in many cases already active right now. Starting February 2026, multiple U.S. states are rolling out enforcement rules that don't rely on warnings or even direct police interaction. Cameras, algorithms, insurance-linked databases. They're doing the watching now. You can be a careful driver, obey speed limits, never touch your phone, and still end up paying thousands of dollars because of one moment you didn't know was illegal. The drivers getting hit hardest aren't reckless teenagers. They're experienced drivers who assume the rules hadn't changed. Here's what makes 2026 different. In the past, when driving laws changed, you heard about it. News stories, warning periods, grace phases. In 2026, the shift isn't about new laws, it's about new enforcement. Rules you think you understand are being interpreted more aggressively, enforced more precisely, and punished more expensively than ever before. And here's the part that should terrify you. Automated enforcement doesn't care how long you've been driving. It doesn't care about your clean record. It doesn't issue warnings. It simply records, reports, and forwards the violation directly to your insurance company or DMV file. Once that happens, fixing the mistake is no longer simple. Many drivers assume if something were truly serious, they'd be notified clearly. But in 2026, notification comes after the damage is done. A ticket in the mail, a registration renewal suddenly denied, an insurance bill that quietly jumps 25%. For seniors on fixed incomes, these aren't minor inconveniences. They're budget-breaking surprises. And what's worse, some of the most impactful changes aren't happening nationwide. State by state, county by county. What's legal where you live may trigger a citation the moment you cross a state line. Experience no longer protects you when enforcement is automated. The system doesn't care that you've driven safely for 40 years. It only cares about what the camera recorded in that moment. That's why so many drivers are saying the same thing right now. I didn't even know that was illegal. Let me walk you through the most critical changes taking effect right now, not rumors. These are real enforcement policies already active. First, distracted driving. For years, many states followed secondary enforcement. An officer couldn't pull you over just for holding your phone. They needed another reason first. That protection is gone. As of 2026, more than a dozen additional states have moved to primary enforcement. If an officer sees a phone in your hand, that alone is enough to justify a traffic stop. No speeding, no swerving, no warning. And here's where it gets worse. Enforcement guidance has expanded what counts as use. Checking directions, scrolling a playlist at a red light, tapping your screen to dismiss a notification while traffic is paused. All of that qualifies as distracted driving now. Many experienced drivers get tripped up right here. For decades, stopping at a red light felt like a safe pause. You weren't moving, so you weren't really driving. The law no longer sees it that way. If you're in the driver's seat controlling the vehicle and your phone is in your hand, you're considered actively operating the car even with your foot on the brake. First-time citations are landing between $200 and $500 before court fees. But the ticket isn't the real problem. The real damage shows up when your insurance renews. Insurance companies now treat distracted driving like speeding or at-fault accidents. A single citation can raise your premiums 15 to 30%. And that increase sticks around for 3 to 5 years. If you're paying $1,500 a year for auto insurance, that's an extra $225 to $450 every year. One quick glance at your phone can cost well over $1,000. For seniors who already pay higher premiums based on age, this compounds fast. What's especially frustrating is that these violations are completely preventable. If your car doesn't have built-in Bluetooth, this is the year to stop improvising. A dashboard mount costs less than a tank of gas. Train yourself to treat red lights as still driving, hands on wheel, eyes forward, phone untouched. Now let me tell you about something even more dangerous, automated speed enforcement. This isn't about a few cameras near intersections anymore. States are rolling out AI-powered speed monitoring systems, especially in construction zones. They operate with precision that leaves zero room for error or explanation. In states like Michigan, these systems are already active in work zones. The cameras are paired with radar that measures your speed the moment you enter the zone and tracks it continuously. If workers are present and you exceed the posted limit even by a small margin, the system records your vehicle, your speed, your license plate. No officer, no warning. The citation arrives later by mail. Here's the trap. The cameras only activate when workers are present. But many drivers don't realize how narrowly that's defined. A single worker standing behind a barrier is enough. Temporary signs may not look different from inactive zones you've driven through dozens of times. The penalty structure escalates. First violation might be a warning. Second offense triggers a civil fine around $150. Third can jump to $300 or more. And even if your license isn't affected, your insurance provider sees a pattern and your rates adjust accordingly. The safest approach is absolute compliance. If the sign says 45, you drive 45, not 50, not keeping up with traffic. These systems are calibrated for exact thresholds. The margin that once existed has disappeared. School zone speed cameras are spreading rapidly. Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida. These cameras tie directly to school schedules. They turn on 30 minutes before school starts and remain active until 30 minutes after the final bell. During those windows, speed limits drop dramatically, sometimes to 15 or 20 miles per hour. If you exceed that reduced limit by as little as 10 miles per hour, the camera captures your plate. Many drivers say they didn't see the sign. They entered the zone just as it became active. Courts consistently rule that drivers are responsible for knowing when school zones are active. Appeals rarely succeed. Navigation apps like Google Maps and Waze are marking school zones and camera locations. When you hear that alert, scan for signage, check your speed, assume enforcement is active. If you drive through residential areas in the morning or afternoon, build a mental buffer. Assume school zones are active during typical start and dismissal times even if you don't see children. The system isn't asking whether you intended to break the rule. It's asking whether the rule was technically broken. In 2026, that distinction matters more than ever. Now here's a change that will shock you. For decades, drivers grew up with one number, 0.08. That was the legal line for blood alcohol concentration. Stay under it, and you were considered sober. In 2026, that assumption is no longer safe. Several states are moving toward a lower legal BAC limit, 0.05. This is modeled after Utah's approach. When Utah lowered its limit, fatal crashes involving drivers with alcohol dropped significantly. Now other states are following. Washington, New York, Hawaii. Here's why this matters for older drivers. A BAC of 0.05 doesn't feel drunk to most people. It's a beer with dinner, a glass of wine at a restaurant, 2 drinks over a couple hours at a family gathering. Many drivers would have confidently driven home under those circumstances for years. In 2026, that confidence can put you at serious legal risk. Alcohol affects people differently as they age. Metabolism slows, medications interact, body composition changes. A drink that once had minimal effect may now raise your BAC faster and keep it elevated longer, and the penalties haven't softened just because the limit is lower. Immediate license suspension, mandatory ignition interlock, devices even for first-time offenders. Fines from $500 to $2,000. Required alcohol education programs, possible jail time, insurance premiums that skyrocket for years. There is no safe mental calculation you can rely on anymore. If you plan to drink at all, don't drive. Arrange transportation before the first drink. The cost of a ride home is always less than the cost of a DUI. Let me tell you about something hitting electric vehicle owners hard. For years, EV owners enjoyed lower operating costs and tax incentives. In 2026, that free ride is officially ending. For nearly a century, roads have been funded through gas taxes. Electric vehicles don't use gas, which means EV drivers weren't contributing even though they use the same roads. As EV adoption increased, states started facing funding gaps. By January 2026, more than 40 states have implemented EV road use fees. These are already showing up on registration renewals. The amounts vary, but many fall between $100 and $200 per year. In states like Pennsylvania, EV fees have jumped significantly. For owners of newer electric vehicles, the annual cost can approach $250 or more. And there's another layer. Several states are testing mileage-based road usage charges. Instead of taxing fuel, they're taxing distance. The more you drive, the more you pay. These programs are still being piloted, but the direction is clear. Distance-based taxation is coming. Check your registration renewal carefully. Fees that didn't exist last year may now be mandatory. If you're considering buying an electric vehicle, factor these annual costs into your decision. Now, this next change is where the law stops being abstract and starts getting physical. In several states, 2026 marks a major expansion of what qualifies as reckless driving. Law enforcement is being given broader authority to seize vehicles immediately if certain behaviors are observed, even if no one is injured and no accident occurs. Actions like spinning tires, drifting in an empty parking lot, accelerating aggressively from a stop can now trigger on the spot vehicle impoundment. The officer doesn't need to prove racing. They only need to determine the driving behavior was intentional and unsafe. If your actions fall under these updated rules, your vehicle can be towed immediately and held for up to 30 days. No grace period, no driving home. You're standing on the roadside while your car is taken away. Seniors can get caught up in these situations unintentionally. A sharp acceleration to merge into traffic, a brief loss of traction on a wet surface, being present near a group of vehicles engaging in risky behavior. In some states, simply being associated with the scene can trigger penalties. The financial impact is severe. Towing fees can be a few $100s. Storage fees run between $50 and $100 per day. Over 30 days, that's $1,500 to $3,000 before you address the citation itself. If you find yourself near a situation that looks questionable, leave immediately. Don't linger. Don't watch. Distance is protection. Once your vehicle is tagged as part of the incident, the burden of undoing that decision falls on you. Now let me tell you about changes affecting license renewals for seniors. States are reworking how senior drivers are evaluated. Some long-standing requirements are being relaxed, but others are becoming stricter. For years, certain states required mandatory road tests, starting at a relatively early senior age. Several states have raised the age at which mandatory road tests begin. Drivers may not be required to retest until their late 70s or even 80s. That sounds like good news. But at the same time, states are tightening vision and in-person verification requirements. In states like California and Florida, drivers over a certain age can no longer renew licenses entirely online or by mail. They must appear in person. In-person appointments are often limited, scheduling delays are common, and missing a required appointment can have severe consequences. If your license expires because you failed to appear when required, it doesn't simply pause, it expires fully. Reinstating it may require starting over. Written tests, road tests, full documentation. For seniors who depend on driving for independence, this can be devastating, and it's often preventable. Check renewal. Notices carefully and early. If the notice says in-person appearance required, treat it as urgent. Book the appointment as soon as you're eligible. One of the most overlooked changes has nothing to do with how you drive and everything to do with how your license is treated as a legal identity document. States are moving toward a high-security identity framework. This fundamentally changes how licenses are issued and renewed. Renewing a license now requires gold standard proof of identity. Birth certificates, verified social security numbers. For non-citizens, proof that directly ties license validity to visa status. If your visa expires in 6 months, your license may now expire in 6 months as well. No extensions. Many drivers who have renewed online for years receive a renewal notice that looks familiar at first, but buried in the details is a line that says in-person verification required. Ignoring that line can quietly invalidate your license the moment it expires. You don't get a warning. You simply go from valid to invalid overnight. States are also rolling out digital driver's licenses. These live in secure smartphone wallets. For drivers comfortable with technology, they're convenient, but digital IDs do not eliminate the need for periodic in-person verification. Some states are making in-person verification more frequent, specifically because digital credentials exist. The only reliable approach is to read renewal notices carefully and follow them exactly. Driving with an invalid license carries serious consequences, even if the expiration was accidental. Insurance may deny coverage. Citations become more severe. Now let me tell you about a rule change that almost everyone thinks they understand, but has expanded in a way that's catching thousands of drivers off guard. Move-over laws have existed for years. Most people associate them with police cars and ambulances. If you see flashing lights on the shoulder, you move over or slow down. In 2026, that rule has been broadened significantly. The requirement no longer applies only to emergency vehicles. It now applies to any stationary vehicle displaying hazard lights. That includes tow trucks, maintenance vehicles, and regular passenger cars stopped on the shoulder with hazards blinking. If you're traveling at highway speed in the lane closest to the shoulder, and you pass a stopped vehicle with hazard lights without moving over or significantly reducing speed, you may now be committing a moving violation. In some states, fines have doubled or quadrupled. Penalties can range from a few hundred to over $1,000, often with points added to your record. For seniors, this requires a shift in scanning behavior. Flashing lights ahead are no longer something you register at the last second. They're an early warning. The moment you see hazards or emergency lights, check mirrors and plan a lane change. If you can safely move over, do it early. If you can't move over safely, slow down significantly. The final change affects families more than any other. For decades, getting a driver's license followed a familiar path. Study, test, pass, progress naturally with time. In 2026, that path is being restructured nationwide. Many states are standardizing their approach to graduated driver licensing. One noticeable change is the removal of a second road test in some states, but that requirement is being replaced with something stricter, a clean record probation period that typically lasts 12 months. Once a young driver earns an intermediate license, they enter a zero-tolerance phase: one ticket, one at-fault accident, one documented violation. Any of those can freeze their progression or send them backward. In some states, that means extending restrictions for another year. In others, mandatory safety classes or restarting the permit process. Nighttime driving is another major focus. Several states are pushing curfews earlier, moving them from 11 to 9 for newly licensed drivers. Passenger restrictions are also tightening. Many jurisdictions now prohibit any passengers under age 21, except immediate family members, for the first 6 months to a year. Learner permit requirements are also expanding. Instead of holding a permit for 6 months, some states now require 9 to 12 months. Supervised driving hours are increasing. What this means for parents and grandparents is simple. Young drivers need more guidance for longer. The system is no longer designed to quickly push teens toward independence. It's designed to test consistency, patience, and judgment over time. Taken together, all these changes point to one truth about driving in 2026. A driver's license is no longer a one-time achievement that lasts forever. It's a performance-based privilege that's constantly evaluated. Whether you're 16 or 76, the system is paying closer attention to your behavior, your compliance, your documentation than ever before. Automation has reduced discretion. Data sharing has increased consequences. Enforcement has shifted from reactive to proactive. That doesn't mean the roads are becoming hostile, it means they're becoming monitored. And the drivers who fare best are the ones who adapt early. So what should you do now? Today, take 10 minutes to visit your state's DMV website and review any updates for 2026. Don't rely on memory. If you drive across state lines, familiarize yourself with the biggest differences. Check your license and registration renewal notices carefully. If in-person visit is required, schedule it early. Don't wait. Make small habit changes that eliminate risk. Keep your phone out of your hands. Treat construction and school zones as absolute. Move over early for any flashing lights. And talk to the people you care about: parents, children, neighbors. Many of these changes are designed to catch drivers who aren't paying attention. A few minutes of awareness can save thousands of dollars and preserve independence. If this breakdown helped you understand what's changing and why it matters, share it with someone who drives regularly, especially a senior or young driver in your family. Driving laws don't stand still anymore. Staying informed is now part of staying safe. This is John from Dream Visa Updates. Drive carefully, stay aware, and protect what matters.